Hi, and welcome to the Punk CX podcast. My name is Adrian Swinsko, and I'm an advisor, best-selling author, speaker, and general explorer when it comes to customer and employee experience. I'm really interested in figuring out what it takes to build organizations that produce better outcomes for both customers and employees. So with that in mind, I seek out and interview CEOs, entrepreneurs, business and tech leaders, authors and academics to uncover some clues about what it takes to build such an organization. Now, some of you may know the podcast as the Rare Business Podcast, but I decided to rename and rebrand the podcast recently. This is for a number of reasons. First one was to mirror the title of my book, Punk CX, which was published in June 2019. 2, because I'm a fan of punk music. And 3, it's just more fun, right? Anyway, if this is your first time listening to one of these interviews, then hello and welcome. And please do dive into the archives at adrianswinsko.com, as I've now completed over 300 of these interviews in the last few years. If this is not your first time listening, then welcome back and thank you. Anyway, that's enough from me right now. Let's get into the interview. Today's podcast is sponsored by Pega Systems. Join Pega on October the 14th for a series of free online events that are focused on shaping the future of business and designing today's tech to solve for tomorrow's challenges. Now, whether your focus is one-to-one customer engagement, customer service, or intelligent automation, there's a virtual event tailored just for you. You'll be able to watch live demos and hear inspiring stories from world-leading organizations in a time zone that suits you. So, go to pega.com and search for Discover, and you will quickly and easily find the event page where you will be able to register for free. I'll see you there. So welcome to the next edition of the Punk CX podcast. With me today, I'm really pleased to have Clare Muscutt on the show. Now, Clare doesn't have a title. Well, we're actually just keeping it mysterious. Well, let's going to say that she's a fellow CX traveler and she's kicking up a storm, and she's going to tell us more about herself and what she does in a bit. But Clare, welcome to the podcast.
Hey, Adrian. Thanks so much for having me on.
You are very welcome. I heard a bit of a kind of a giggle in the background when I talked about keeping it mysterious. But anyway,
mysterious girl.
There's a song in that, I think.
A really bad one.
Yeah, a very bad one. Anyway, can you tell us? I mean, so let's kind of throw back the curtains of mysteriousness and tell us a bit about you and a bit about yourself and the work that you do.
I suppose I'd start off by saying I'm a career CXer. I'm a feminist, and I'm passionate about supporting women in customer experience to shine. Mm-hmm. But probably need to give you a bit of background as to where I came from.
Sure.
So I spent 22 years working in CX on the front line and in various customer experience leadership roles in FTSE 100. So now I don't look old enough, but that's actually a true fact, which I guess I'd say is the foundation of what I'd call myself today, which is a CX entrepreneur. Mm-hmm. So I quit the corporate world in 2017, and now I guess you could say I wear 3 different hats. Mm-hmm. One as the founder and director of CM Experience Limited, which is just a small boutique customer experience design agency based here in London. Mm-hmm. But I'm also the author of How to Be Awesome at CX, which is a book coming out soon. But I'm presently building a lot of content around helping other CXers to become awesome at CX too. And finally, and most excitedly, I'm the founder of the Women in CX community and host of the Inspiring Women in CX podcast.
Awesome. Now, it's the latter thing that I wanted to talk to you about, because this new initiative that is called the Women in CX, or the community and all the things that go around it. I mean, tell me a little bit more about now what you're up to, and also why are you doing this, and kind of what's the need kind of like behind it all.
Sure. So I guess Women in CX is all about creating a safe space for women to inspire, support, and network with each other like never before. Mm. And where it all began was basically me discovering the power of the female CX community myself during lockdown.
Right.
Because I went through a pretty terrible time, and but I had the opportunity to connect with women all around the world who all needed help and support as we were all facing these challenges presented to us by COVID-19. But we didn't just want to talk about our CX challenges. I I guess many of the conversations I was seeing online or in other community forums or groups were just focusing on what should we do about customer experience? What should we do about CX next or post COVID-19? We really
can I interrupt there? Can you talk about the kind of the CX challenges? I mean, what do you mean by that specifically? Is this like women in that sort of experience or customer experience space, or is this the challenges that they faced with the onset of the pandemic? Or
so I guess that's what I'm saying. So if I was in any of my community groups, the conversations that were happening were all about what do we do about customer experience during a pandemic? How can we talk about this kind of thing? But in the conversations I was having online privately with women, we were talking about all manner of things. And it was particularly to do with how we were thinking and how we were feeling.
Right.
And what was different, I guess, was this shared solidarity that we felt, and the feeling of being supported by what we began calling each other as our CX sisters was just amazing. And when we started to call each other this, with this community began to emerge actually in Instagram. And we started connecting with each other, and I guess kind of like referring each other. Oh, you should meet this woman. She's doing this over here. She could help you with this. And the community kind of like just happened.
Okay.
Naturally through Instagram. And we were just there, constantly supporting each other, liking and commenting on each other's posts, cheerleading, having these like regular conversations, checking in. Are you okay? How are you doing with that problem that you were facing? And it was even stuff like, how am I going to pay the bills? How am I going to manage my kids? Some women were really struggling with, suddenly becoming stay-at-home mums, having been career mums all that time.
Yeah.
And I guess what I figured was there's this huge potential to really make a difference to the community. If we could have more of these conversations happening that weren't just limited by our own individual networks.
Right.
So the starting point was, I guess, being able to have some of those real talk conversations on a podcast. And the first 4 episodes that we've released on a weekly basis now were basically me talking to some of these women that I'd met on Zoom, through Instagram and online, and basically having those conversations more publicly.
Perfect.
And the feedback has been awesome. So not just from women, but from men as well, actually.
Yeah.
Because, they're saying things like, we never hear 2 women having a conversation, the guys particularly, and being able to listen in and have that real experience of the real talk is what's making the difference. So now we've got a LinkedIn page, a YouTube channel. We're all the big platforms with the podcast, and we've got a weekly newsletter devoted to shining a light on these awesome women in CX. And we've amassed 400 subscribers in just 4 weeks. So
nice.
I think the need is there, the potential is there to do something really awesome, and so far it feels like the demand is there for more.
Cool. And so because you told me about this, and I thought that's really that's brilliant. I mean, and kind of like I'm clapping kind of here now because it's like absolutely. And I know that the podcast is the catalyst to try and center a community kind of around, or at least to catalyze the creation of the community. But then you also described it as being create this community of women in experience who help each other rise up and change the face of the industry. Now, I was a bit like, oh, what does that mean? Because I'm like going, oh my God, kind of like there's some stuff going on. It's like, there's some changes afoot. I mean, what changes do you think needs to be kind of made? I mean, I could guess kind of like at some, but I'd love to hear kind of it from your perspective.
So I guess the starting point, I think, is creating the community itself and empowering women to have more of these real talk conversations. But it's really important that all of this does start organically and inform the direction of where we go with the membership community. I think being able to have these conversations globally rather than regionally or within our own networks is massive. But we need to identify collectively precisely what needs to change. And if we can do that, we've got a really good chance of being able to change it together. And I think there's such a massive difference depending on where you live,
You're right,
as to the challenges that you face into. So I think we've got the opportunity with the community group to be able to really identify that. But for example, I think one of the biggest limiting factors I'm being told about constantly in every conversation I have pretty much with every woman is the belief that, you know, we can actually do this. And when I say this, it's, you know, some women working in business lacking the confidence to go for the promotion.
Right.
A lot of women facing the fear of wanting to go freelance but being scared to like start their own business because of multiple reasons, but especially if they've got families to support, and also like, even beginning their speaking careers. But as I said, like this network that I built through Instagram, we all helped each other do all of those things during the pandemic. So I think that the role of that community to inspire and support one another to feel that we can step up, and for more of us to be able to take up the space that we deserve in CX and in business more broadly, is really important. And yeah, so a lot of women that do absolutely incredible work in CX, but you'd have never heard of them because they don't have any platform or profile. Whereas the Women in CX community idea could enable that to happen. So, you know, being able to be seen and show themselves and be featured, and they deserve it, you know, but without the confidence and the support of a community to say, we're behind you, we want to hear from you, a lot of women will just stay quiet. So yeah, so I think it's going to be about helping each other to build up our knowledge and our skills and mentorship as a collective.
Right.
And yeah, using the power of the community and the group to be really clear about what it is that we want to change. So when I say changing the face of the CX industry, I'm not saying it needs to be more female or less male. It's just more that we have more women being seen and showing up and feeling confident and proud to be as awesome as they are.
No, I think that's that's fine. I was kind of rather hoping that you were going to create some sort of, you know, some other sort of seditious talk, and you're going to blow up kind of like something or other, and it's like going, no, come on. But no, I think you're absolutely right. It's like going, it's like shining the light and promoting people. I don't mean promoting people necessarily as a position, but actually just generally promoting kind of voices and perspectives.
And being heard, and
of course,
having a voice,
of course.
And I don't know why it is that so many women feel this way, but almost every conversation I have involves imposter syndrome. So, you know, maybe this is one of the things that we need to change ultimately is, you know, how do we fight that? And that's within ourselves, not necessarily always.
Well, maybe there's a belief actually kind of like that people just have to embrace that imposter syndrome gets everybody kind of like all the time, you know, pretty much. It's like going, you know, what is for me, if I think about imposter syndrome, do I have it? Well, yeah, probably. Like people go like, oh, you're kind of like this expert. I'm like going, no, I'm not. I'm just a student. I am
humble.
Pardon?
That's very humble.
Well, I am a student of this. I mean, that's just what I am. I'm a student, but I'm a perpetual student. I mean, for me, I think the expert or expertise implies
already know it.
Already having the answers. I'm like going, no, I might have been down this track before, but I don't know the answer. I can help you navigate it.
Yeah, that's the funny thing about customer experience, right? Nobody has the right answer.
Yeah, but there's so many people that profess to have their like must do it like this or must do it like that, and you're like, oh, my head explodes. But
yeah, I get you.
So kind of tell me about the community. I mean, do you have any specific ideas, or is this going to be completely kind of almost community led? I mean, do you have around kind of like what you've got plans to help facilitate the build up in confidence, the ability to get more experience, to share more stories, all that sort of stuff?
Yeah. So I guess like we've been looking at what are the key markers of really successful female first communities.
Right.
So having the right platform is going to be really important. And I don't know if you've ever heard of it, but Kajabi is like this kind of all-in-one solution where we can have, for example, chat room conversations happening. We can have content hosted. We can have mentorship connections being made and that kind of networking side.
Right.
And I guess the kind of first level of this membership is we've got completely free, where we've got the newsletter, the podcast, and we've got the LinkedIn group. So we want it to be completely inclusive, and cost not to ever be a barrier to women and men getting involved in the conversation.
Mm-hmm.
And then this first level is then more about the kind of closed chat room conversations, depending on what's coming out of the community. We want to be creating monthly events online to start with until we can be in real life again, but taking the themes that are coming out of the chat rooms, finding the right people from our community to be the voices behind helping to tackle some of those challenges and issues.
Yeah.
Then all of the content that we create for members will then be available on demand anytime.
Right.
And as I said, you're kind of taking a lead from what the community needs, being able to create more content that's specific to skills gaps, for example, perhaps in customer experience, but I'm imagining it's going to be more around female leadership and personal development.
Yes.
Because the other call out I think we've experienced so far is about this, the struggle to be holistically whole as a woman in business and in customer experience. So, kind of career is one thing, but finance, health and well-being, relationships are all big factors in our lives too. And I don't know whether I can only speak as a woman, I don't know from a man's point of view, but balancing those things seem to be a lot tougher in the female community. So I guess we're yet to see, but being able to have those conversations happening, women being able to connect and network together, to be able to be visible and seen is what it's all about. And I guess the dream is that it's a kind of like member generated content, and it's the women in the community who are going, I know about this, let me come and speak about it.
Very well.
Rather than it being, me personally.
Yeah.
Even down to like the user research, so member research. Don't know what the right term is there. We're looking at women already in the free community who've said, actually, I'd really love to be part of helping to understand what we need and using the skills and paying the women that already work in the community and have that expertise there to do this work. So I guess the purpose is really strong. The drive and the passion behind it is burning in my veins, and I know the founding members that are starting to collaborate on this with me are just as passionate. So yeah,
awesome.
I guess.
So what's
TBC.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, so what's the timeline on this, or should we just kind of like watch this space, or do you have like a putative we'd like to kind of like do a secret squirrel club thing for the next 3 months or something?
Yeah, I think the next 3 months is going to be working on and with the founding members to define what our kind of MVP of that first level community is. And yeah, I'd like to say 3 months will be live with the actual membership community, or at least the first iteration of it. But yeah, when does this podcast go out?
It should go out in the next kind of in about a month, 6 weeks time, sort of thing.
6 weeks time. Okay. Well, yeah. Well, hopefully, people that are hearing this will have already started seeing more of what we're talking about on LinkedIn, for example.
Well, absolutely. I mean, I think the other thing I would say is just as an aside. I mean, I don't know if I've talked to you about this before, but there's myself and a colleague are discussing kind of like trying to set up a community which is European based or European focused, a bit around kind of experience, trying to understand the differences that exist across kind of markets and all that sort of stuff. And I'd love I don't know where we're possibly at similar sort of stages development, but I would love for the women in CX and the European CX community to overlap, and work together. That would be awesome. Yeah,
definitely. That sounds like a great idea. It's all about collaboration.
Absolutely. So so I guess for me, I think what can I and my audience, the people that are listening to this, what can we do to help?
So I guess the first thing is, acknowledging that women are experiencing challenges. And recognizing perhaps, or at least looking into how some of the patriarchal systems are the barriers to our success. It's not actually the fact that we're women, it's the fact that many of the systems are set up to serve white, straight, middle-aged men first.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
depending on what country you're in, you'll have a greater or lesser experience of that, where there are other intersections with, for example, the colour of your skin, your sexuality, your age, your social and economic status, which will have a compounded effect on gender. So I guess anyone who's not familiar with the patriarchy, like perhaps just try to understand a little bit more about that.
Yeah. Can I tell you a story about that? Because that's something that I heard towards the beginning of the year, that describes, I think, this and then a bunch of other kind of like issues that we've seen kind of evolve and emerge. And it involves Joaquin Phoenix at the Oscars. And he got up and he made a speech, and he started talking about he was accepting an award. I think he got an award for like best actor or something. Or supporting actor. I can't remember exactly what it was for, but he talked about this idea that he was bemoaning the lack of diversity and representation across the academy, and also the nominations and everything else. And he turned around and he says, look, I know that I'm part of the problem. He said, but I want everybody to, when they see injustice or inequality or discrimination, to speak out about it. I could ever want to say to people never to protest or never to speak their truth. But he said that here's the truth, the real truth, and this is the thing that stuck with me. He says nothing will change until those that built the system rebuild the system. And that has stuck with me throughout this kind of year. And I just think it just captures a lot of what we're talking about and the challenges that we face.
Yeah, and I think for many of us, it's, where do we begin to do that ourselves? Because we're not in those positions of power. But I think it is about, using our voices and being very vocal about it not being okay. So any form of inequality, whatever kind of inequality, it's not okay. And I know I, for one, particularly on Instagram and also LinkedIn, have started to be very vocal about my thoughts and opinions on that. And I know some people find it more difficult because they're not self-employed or working for their own company. But yeah, and everybody being able to think, if I see something, I can call it out. If the pandemic and George Floyd has taught us anything about that sense of community, and especially kind of social media community, it's about taking a stand when you feel or see something that's not okay too. I feel really, really sorry for a lot of the women in America, for example, which is obviously a very progressive place, but the fact that Trump's America is having this resurgence basically in sexism being okay. It's like we're fixing and getting equality, and then these people in those positions of power are effectively tearing it back down again. So using your vote is another example, I guess.
All sorts of sort of different things. I mean, I guess it's like I guess we've got to choose to see. And then we've got to choose to ask ourselves, is that okay? And make a decision, and then show up around that decision, I guess. But I'll be in, for as far as I'm concerned, I'm with you.
Thank you. Men supporting women in CX as allies is just as important. And I guess that's what I could ask of the audience. If you wanted to sign up to the newsletter at www.womenincx.community, you could get on the newsletter and keep up to date with what we're doing. And all the podcast episodes are published on a weekly basis with blogs from women in CX. So starting kind of listening into those conversations would be a great starting point. Anyone who's really interested in the cause of furthering women in CX, I'd love to hear from you. If you want to get in touch, if you're interested in becoming a founding member to help us to develop that community proposition and platform, I'd love it. Love to get some more support. And I think just, so excited that the membership experience is going to be at the heart of everything that we do. If we've got a bunch of customer experience people developing it, it's going to be incredible. If anyone's interested in that side too, equally I'd love to hear from you.
Awesome. So once you've achieved world domination, obviously,
World domination.
then what?
Well, I don't really know what you define by that. I think we're just looking for equality at the moment. So rather than taking over, I guess if the community hopefully will be a success in that first stage, and we'll be able to grow it to start thinking about like in real life meetups or
Right.
regional chapters where women take over their own part of the world and start doing this themselves. Like already had some really awesome conversations with people who want to translate the podcast into Portuguese, for example, for Brazil.
Nice.
And into Spanish. Yeah. I've got a keynote gig that I'm doing in Argentina, fingers crossed, in November, and they're like, oh, well, we could just take this and translate it and start like sharing it on our channels too. So that world domination, maybe it's not world domination, but making women in CX accessible, with English not being the restrictive factor, I think would be a really worthy goal.
Awesome.
But yeah, let's see.
Fantastic. I mean, so anything else you'd like to add that we've missed out? Because I mean, I want to get on to kind of your, fellow sort of CX travelership.
Yes. No, I think we're good. I think we're ready for the next.
So here's the thing. So what I also kind of ask kind of people when they come on the podcast is because the people, I always like to get people's kind of, to talk about kind of what they're doing, what they're up to, but I also like to get their view. And because again, it's like boiling it down, right? It's like, because you talk about lots of different stuff and people go, that's brilliant. And now do not know what to do. So if I was to say to you, somebody's listening to this or reading the highlights and they want to improve the service or the experience that they deliver to their customers, I mean, what would be your best advice? What would you say? You go, I, Clare Muscutt, say that you should do the following. Now go off and go forth and do it.
So I guess I, Clare Muscutt, being a customer experience designer,
right?
I resisted the urge to say expert, would say that I think this is going to be increasingly the skill set that organizations and individuals are going to need to build. I say that because the world is getting increasingly more complicated.
Yeah.
And as a result, the customer experience is too. And I'm with you with the punk point of view that customer experience as a discipline is at risk of disappearing up its own backside. So getting a really good grounding in some of the tools of CX design will enable you to cut through a lot of that bullshit.
Yeah.
And really listen to customers, have a really clear discovery where you're not answering business problems, you're really seeking to understand customer and employee ones that will have a benefit to the business, and starting to build capabilities yourself in some of those design practices, I think would stand you in really good stead for whatever comes next.
Awesome. And so so building on that, do you think, you mentioned the future? I mean, do you think that's kind of like being very design-led, being very humanistic in your kind of like approach, or humanistic first, as it were? Do you think that's going to define the future of service and experience?
I think it's got to, really. I guess my
So it's not going to be the Matrix then? You're not going to
well,
get plugged in.
No, because humans are always going to be the most important factor, aren't they? I guess if you ask me the question, what does customer experience look like for customers in the future? I think it's a very exciting place.
Right.
However, what does it look like for the CX industry? If we don't change course pretty damn soon, we're going to be irrelevant.
Yeah.
Because my view of the world is there's been so much hype about it and so little delivery, especially as all this complexity is increased. There are big technology companies now offering their services as a solution, which you and I know are not the solution.
Sure.
But in the vacuum or the absence of actually any genuine real action to definitively deliver results, we're screwed. So
I mean, I wrote a piece the other day which kind of like said that I mentioned that Forrester kind of made a prediction, I think it was late last year, that said that they reckoned that up to about 25% of professionals that worked in the experience sort of space would lose their jobs, could potentially lose their jobs across 2020 because they weren't delivering the right sort of ROI. And then the pandemics hit.
That did it for us.
Yeah, well, that's got rid of the first 25,
Yeah.
and then there's probably another kind of like tranche kind of coming. So people have got to get real and forget the interior decorating and start fixing the foundations and fixing the roof, and all that sort of like stuff, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, but I think the gap is not about CX technical skills; it's about leadership, and there's
Right.
nowhere really driving that. So we've got lots of courses and certificates that are about the frameworks and the models.
Horseshit.
Wow, but how it's not about that. When it comes to making change happen, it's about great leadership. It's about really strong project management skills. It's about far many more disciplines than just the ones you find in CX.
Yeah.
And if we're really going to challenge this, I think we really need to challenge ourselves as an industry to get that objectivity back and listen, I guess, to what businesses need from a community of people who clearly have a lot of skill sets, and actually diversifying ourselves as a result.
I mean, I think that I get frustrated with because I have a background as an educator, back in the day, and so I understand kind of like how the idea of certification and codification and all that sort of stuff. I get that, but it's like I also feel like kind of it ends up getting really reductive, and that people go, they're almost like selling the answer, and it's a bit like going, it's like a bit like passing your driving test, but then believing that you're a great driver. And that's just nonsense.
Well, it just worries me so much, Adrian, because there's some of the conversations I have had of late with people who are apparently certified to do the job that it took me 22 years to do, who have literally just come out of some other discipline and passed the test, and now are doing things like focusing on the outcome of customer experience, like the measurements and those things that drive me absolutely crazy. And because they've been taught that that's the answer. I don't know.
Not from here.
No, I know. It's not really,
but yeah, I think you're absolutely right. I mean, the leadership around kind of like and also getting your arms around the kind of the problem. It's not about getting a spanner out of your toolbox and then looking for the right nut that needs kind of like tightening up.
Yeah, and I guess that's why I'm such an advocate of customer experience design, because that's what it's all about. It's about discovering what is the problem, what are the potential answers to that, and using customers, employees, the brand and the business to formulate that approach. But rather than going straight to the end, we need a voice of customer program for that. If I hear that one more time or see that one more time in a thread,
again, that's that people think that's a reductive approach, right? And they go,
how about actually going and talking to people in a primary sense to understand?
I've got a sticker on the front of my new notebook which just goes, just fucking ask your customer.
I got asked this morning what piece of advice would I give in the context that they're just given a few little tidbits of advice on a LinkedIn post, and I was like, get back to the floor, go and actually work in that frontline role. You will find so much insight by spending a few days with your employees and serving customers that you'll never get from a voice of the customer program.
I mean, it's related to this thing that something I've been sort of thinking about over the last kind of couple of days. We're talking about people talk about listening, and because it's related to something I wrote 10 years ago, where I sort of wrote, hearing is something that we do with our ears, and listening is something we do with our brains. But I've kind of thought that actually that's missing. 10 years on, I think that's missing a piece, because learning helps us understand. But it's like a data collection thing. It helps us understand, but understanding something doesn't make us do something. Actually, we have to listen with our brains and our hearts.
I like that.
Because actually, only when you engage your hearts does actually something happen.
And also, I think it's the difference between analysis and synthesis, right? So, you can take a load of data and interpret it, and it tells you some more dry facts. But synthesizing quantitative
Yeah,
information
figuring out
requires
what it means.
brain and heart,
Mm.
and not just statistics. And I think, you know, data is definitely part of the answer, but it's not everything.
You like this is an old favorite of mine, a quote from a gentleman by the name of Joseph Krzyzewski. He says, "The map is not the territory."
Oh, that's a great one. I'm going to write that down. I'm going to have that on my notebook on a post-it note.
There you go.
Thank you.
So, brilliant. Thank you for that. I would agree. Design, focusing on the problem, understanding the problem, I think is definitely the way forward. And however, kind of like data and technology and people kind of like fit into that mix to enable it all is obviously got to be the key. But it actually being focused on the problem,
yes,
is definitely the way forward.
Not the solution. Absolutely.
Absolutely. So, Claire, one final thing I wanted to ask you about, and it's, I guess, a piece of kind of ongoing social research. So I asked you get to be my guinea pig for this kind of like on this particular podcast interview, if that's okay with you. So like we were talking about before, and you mentioned in the podcast the punk CX thing, and that's a book that I published last year. And so the end of every interview now, I've been asking people a couple of questions about the sort of punk CX. And the first one is that I asked them, what one word do you think would describe a more punk or a punk approach to CX? What would that be? One or two words?
I love this word, indecorous.
Okay, I think you might need to spell that for us.
So INDECOROUS, indecorous. It actually means behaving badly or rudely. If you take the dictionary definition. But I think for me, it's about challenging the status quo and the dogma of CX. And we may well be seen as being indecorous in being more challenging at the voices that basically collude together to tell us what the truth is.
Right.
But we need to not be scared of that. And like, I think indecorous could be a bit of a compliment for people who are rising up against, I say not against, but in favor of being different.
Yeah.
Thinking independently and leading with innovation of their own that isn't constrained by how we're supposed to do things. I think being an indecorous CXer would be a great punk approach.
I like that word. I'm definitely adding that to my list.
It's a great one.
And then the second one is, so what company or brand do you think epitomizes that sort of ethos?
So I've really struggled with this question because, to be completely honest with you, I couldn't think of one.
Right.
Because I guess for me, this punk versus prog ethos, I can't really see too many brands really stepping into that space and really being indecorous about changing the way that we do things.
Right.
So I know, I guess I'd like to understand a bit more from you maybe on what kind of markers do you think are of punk CX ethos when it comes to businesses, just to help me?
So I think the thing that I would say is that the, punk was all about do it yourself, dare to be different, not need to be liked by everybody, more with heart and emotion, trying to do something that matters, about railing against the establishment, about trying not to be boring, crumbs. And it didn't require you to have lots of piercings and green hair. Crumbs. Look at Pete Shelley at the Buzzcocks. If you kind of think about the first time that he was on Top of the Pops, where he was singing the song "Ever Fall in Love with Someone," which is a brilliant song. It looks like he's got like this kind of like like a shirt that's out of CNA. This kind of like
punk.
kind of crazy. And then look at Fergal Sharkey with these kind of like crew neck kind of jumpers and kind of like with these little kind of Simon t-shirt, sort of like the collar kind of sticking up, kind of our granddad kind of shirt collar sticking up inside it. It's like they didn't look particularly wild. But it's not about how you look, it's about how you approach things. And I think that's the thing. And again, it's a bit like similar to being, people talk about being stand out and being competitive, and differentiation and things. And it's fascinating kind of how people are almost kind of like striving for this. And people, I've asked people this when I spoke to them before, like rooms of people, and going like, so who would like to stand out from the crowd? And then pretty much everybody's kind of hand, or whose brand would like to stand out from the crowd. And pretty much everybody's hand goes up. Because if there's somebody that doesn't put their hand up, you're either going, you're not participating, or why are you here? But then you ask them again, and he's like, who really is willing to do something different?
Okay.
To really can like stand out.
Okay. I think I've got an example, but it's not a company or brand.
Okay, go ahead.
The one that just came to mind though was a punk approach to politics, and Jacinda Ardern just came to mind.
There you go. Yeah.
As somebody who's doing it differently, her own way, putting people first and at the heart of stuff like no other politicians do. But look at the results she's getting.
Well, absolutely. I mean, so the last, one of the last interviews, so the interview I just published was with a lady who she's called Rana El Kalioubi.
Yeah, I saw that one. Yeah.
And she picked Taylor Swift.
Oh, okay. All right. So I wasn't too far off being able
she
to
picked Taylor Swift, not as a brand, but as a person who is kind of like a brand in of herself, in terms of how she treats her fans. And I thought that was cool. But Jacinda Ardern, she's rocking it. She's down in New Zealand, sort of thing.
Yeah, she's my hero.
No, she's brilliant. She's brilliant. I mean, and there's a number of other women that have, particularly in the political sphere, that have like stood out as titans.
Yeah, and whilst being pregnant and holding babies and stuff as well.
all of that have just been incredible, and been kind of like beacons in this time of kind of like tumultuousness. Yeah. So I salute them.
Yeah, I guess my only point to add there is whatever we build in the Women in CX community, we're definitely going to be punking.
Awesome. Loving it.
And thanks so much for having me on the show and telling me so much more about the ethos of this. And I can't wait to get my hands on that very beautiful book.
Well, I mean, thank you. And I'll make sure, I'll tell you what, we'll speak afterwards and I'll send you a copy. Don't you worry.
Oh,
that offer doesn't apply to everybody that I say that has on the podcast, obviously. But Claire, I just want to say thank you for sharing your time and your insight with us today. Absolutely. I completely applaud what you're doing with the Women in CX community and podcast. You have a complete supporter here.
Thank you.
Anything I can do to help. But finally, thank you for sharing your time and your insight and your experience and your perspectives with us today. That's been awesome.
You're so welcome. It's been an absolute pleasure talking to you, as always.
Well, that was cool. I hope you enjoyed it. I did, and I always do actually, because I always learn something new when I speak to some of these amazing kind of people. And it's always something new that I can incorporate into my writing, speaking, workshops, and other sort of advisory work that I do. Now, if you're interested in learning about any of that sort of stuff, then you can find out more about how I work with clients over at adrianswinscoe.com. One final thing before I go, please consider heading over to iTunes or Spotify or whichever podcast platform you choose to use, and do leave a review. Every little helps, as they say. Anyway, that's all for now. Thank you for listening, and do tune in again soon. All the very best. Cheers. Bye.